And Ray, I see Ray's here. Thank you. Bill, are you in your new place?
Yes, we are. I can't find everything yet, but we're here.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm going to lower my screen a second and go find something. I found a picture the other day that I remembered I wanted to share. Let's see here.
Are you gonna need share screen, Mindy?
Yeah, I am. Let's see if I can share this one. Let me come back to you.
I might need to enable it.
I haven't tried yet. But I found this the other day. Look at that, Vern.
Wow.
This was
that was pre-beard.
Yeah, this was the very first 7 days. This was 7 days, 2015. And we did the interfaith panel, and I think 80 people came, and you were the host of it and the moderator. And I was scrolling through pictures because I interviewed with somebody on the behalf of Alana Mueller, and then the woman asked me for pictures. And so I was like looking just through different things where she might have been in, and I saw this picture and I thought, I wonder if Vern's going to be on. I'm going to pull that picture up so I can find it quickly.
Well, I know it's you, and I think it's me because of the label.
Because it has your name on it. Yeah, and there's Sheila behind us right there, and that's my brother Tony.
Yes.
And then I think this is Llama Matt. I think that might be Llama Matt's ear.
Could be.
Well, thank you for showing that. That was fun.
Yeah, I happened to see that, and I was like, I'm going to save that in my downloads, and because I know I joined some of what Geneva does as well, and I thought, well, one time I'll find you on here and I'll show you that picture from 2015.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks to everyone who's joining us on Zoom and Facebook and YouTube. My name is Geneva Blackmer, and I'm the program director of the Interfaith Center. We're located at the Miami University campus in Oxford, Ohio, and our mission is to invite people of diverse religious, spiritual, and secular worldviews to participate in one another's practices in order to cultivate appreciative understanding and to build friendships and relationships, as well as to unify them around common moral, social, and ethical concerns in order to build a more just and equitable society for all people. I'm really, really excited to welcome Mindy here with us today to share about her journey and her new book. Mindy's life purpose changed from guiding people financially as CEO of a successful wealth management firm to making it her mission to gather people to shine a light on peace. Mindy is the founder of Faith Always Wins Foundation and the 7 Days Make a Ripple, Change the World experience, which you guys were just talking about. She is the co-founder of Workplace Healing LLC. In her podcast, Real Grief, Real Healing, she offers her audience the opportunity to hear from real people about their life-altering experiences and what steps they took and are taking to find healing. Her book, Healing a Shattered Soul, gives readers a look into her faithful journey of courageous kindness after the trauma and grief of domestic terrorism. With compassion and forgiveness, Mindy shares her experience of loss as a daughter and a mother, a wife and co-worker, both nationally and internationally. Mindy encourages and motivates audiences to overcome life's challenges one day at a time. And I'm going to share all of the links for how you can purchase her book and learn more about her in the chats. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, Mindy.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Geneva. Thank you all for joining tonight. So I'd like to have just use your little reaction button or raise your own hand and let me know if you have already read the book. I'm just curious. Okay, I know Bill has because he had to. And okay, now raise your hand or give me a reaction if you have the book. Awesome. Okay, in Geneva. Okay, Dawn. All right, great. Okay, I just wanted to know kind of where I was starting, so that's helpful. Okay, this is what the book looks like. It looks like me. And what's interesting is the painting behind me is also the painting that's on the book. It's the cover of the book. And thank you, Patricia, for messaging. That's great. I see the chat. So anyway, it's fairly easy to find. You can just Google Mindy Corporon and go to Amazon, or if you're in Kansas City, perhaps, and you want to buy local, Rainy Day Books has it. So I'm promoting local as well. I also think you could probably just walk into any local bookstore and ask them if they could get it for you if you wanted to buy local. But Barnes & Noble has it and Amazon has it. So because this is an interfaith group and an interfaith gathering, I selected two different readings that I thought I would do to start with. And one is out of the chapter that I titled, Jews Don't Talk About Jesus. So that's the title of the chapter, Jews Don't Talk About Jesus. And let me give you some context. The context is that my dad and Reed were murdered in 2014 at the Jewish Community Center in Overland Park, Kansas. And my dad and Reed are Christian. And then Terry Lamanna was murdered just right after that by the same murderer, the same shooter at Village Shalom. And she is also Christian, specifically Catholic Christian. And after that happened, I had just serious doubts about my faith. I had a lot of serious doubts about Christianity and God because of everything that happened, because I thought, we'd been really good Christians. So how could this have happened? We followed all the Christian rules and we did what we were supposed to be doing. So, I had thought, and which really is true, that had nothing to do with how they got murdered. But when a heinous crime happens in that way, you question a lot of things. And so I was questioning that. And the other thing that came to light was all these Jewish people who gathered around us. At the time of their murders, I knew a handful of Jewish people, literally maybe 5, maybe 6. So maybe a handful and a finger. But I had never engaged any of them in a conversation about their faith. I knew that the people that I knew that were Jewish, I knew that they were Jewish. But I had not been to a synagogue. I had not been to any high holiday. I just knew very little. I was very ignorant about it, but I felt like I knew what I needed to know to get by in life, in the life that I was living. And I would say the same thing about Islam, except I would say I knew even less, so much less. I had a friend of our son's, his name's Bilal Jamal, and he's Muslim. And I didn't even know he was Muslim until after they were murdered. And we started talking about faiths, and Bilal came to an activity that we were having, and he said, and we were asking the students what faith they represented and how they identified. And he said, I identify as Muslim. And I just felt so stupid and ignorant that I didn't realize he was Muslim. We'd never talked about that. He'd been to my house and I'd, given him meals, and his mom had told me what he could and could not have to eat, that type of thing. But we just had not had a conversation about his faith. So when I was writing the book and contemplating how to explain part of my journey, so there's a part of my journey that was serious sadness and grappling with mental health, grappling with staying married and raising another child. There's all of those. There are those family dynamics. There were also many faith dynamics. And I ended up holding on to my faith of Christianity, but there was clearly a time when I questioned it seriously. So that leads me to, I'm going to read a little piece about from the chapter that I call Jews Don't Talk About Jesus, because that's how I saw it. When they were murdered, it really opened a door for me to be able to have conversations with people that maybe many people wouldn't normally do. So I kind of had this open policy where I could ask a question out of curiosity, and most people would just answer it because they'd say, oh my gosh, she's the one that lost her family. We should answer her question. And that helped me learn a lot more than I probably could have in a short amount of time. So this is happens to be on page 116. Not that you're going to remember that, but if you want to jot it down for when you get the book, it's on page 116 of the book. And I'm starting kind of in the middle of the chapter, and it's a Jewish friend of mine who I had known for years, and I knew him really, really well through my wealth management firm. He was a client of ours, and he was a friend. And I had decided that I was ready to talk to him about Judaism. Like, he was the closest person to me that I felt like I could trust him, and he knew me long enough. I felt like he could be honest with me. So this is a little bit of our conversation. I started in this way. Irv, I would like to have a conversation with you about Judaism and most likely Christianity. Since the murders, I have some serious concerns about the dogma pertaining to Christianity. The first time I engaged Irv with this topic, we were on the phone, and I heard a breathy pause on the other end of the line. I proceeded, Irv, do Jews talk about Jesus? Not really, he replied. Quickly, anxiously, I jumped all in with, are you aware that Christians believe Jesus is the only way to heaven? Irv is thoughtful for a moment. Yes, he admits, I'm familiar that some Christians believe this. He continues, as a Jew, I believe Jesus was a prophet and a great teacher, but I don't believe he was raised from the dead, nor do I believe he was the living Son of God. What about heaven? I ask. How do Jews get to heaven? Do you want to go to heaven? As usual, Irv sits quietly to ponder his thoughtful response. Because I have engaged in conversations with this man for over 20 years, I'm familiar with his conversational technique, including reflective, delayed responses. Even over the phone, I can sense he is contemplating. He taps his fingers on the table, most likely places his hand on his chin, and then rubs it and tilts his head to the side. I think I heard you ask, how did Jews get to heaven? Is this what you asked me? A typical comeback to my question of him is a clarifying question of me. Yes, I answer, more waiting. I know from past experience that it is best to be quiet and allow him ample time to respond. Irv begins, I am not speaking for all Jews. I am only speaking on behalf of myself and what I practice in my own life. It is my belief, and I believe I learned this as part of my Jewish faith, that good deeds are the way to heaven. I always want to leave people I meet in a better condition than they were in before we met. I want to do my part in leaving our community and our world in a better situation than I feel it is in now. Acts of good deeds are what I strive for to get to heaven. Okay, I answer and ponder a bit. I appreciate his thoughtful response. It helps me better understand the Jewish perspective on heaven. Irv turns the tables on me and asks, how do Christians get to heaven? Christians believe that Jesus is God, I explain. Jesus, the Son of God, actually was God in the flesh. We believe Jesus was born from a virgin, died on a cross, and was raised from the dead 3 days later. Jesus died for our sins. So what do you have to do to get to heaven? Irv inquires. This question has never been posed to me. Similar to Irv, I have to stop and deeply consider my own response. I realize that actually, no, you don't have to do good deeds to get to heaven. Jesus died on the cross for our sins. All we have to do is believe. This feels like a weak answer, because while believing can be difficult at times, it is just believing, not actually actively doing something to better myself or anyone else. It seems like there should be more to it, yet I know this aspect of grace to be true based on my faith. So that's an excerpt about me learning about Judaism. that was just a huge eye opener for me. So I'm going to pause there and just open it up for questions. I do have one more excerpt that I'm happy to read, but that's in the Islam chapter. And just so you know, that chapter is titled Islam or Muslim. But I'd like to just chat here on the Judaism piece and see what anyone might want to say or offer.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Mindy, I'm wondering whether you would give the same answer to Irv today that you gave then. And I wonder how you would understand Judaism, the Judaism that he described, having heard about it from other people as well.
Yeah, so let me talk about Judaism from other people. It's interesting too, that question. You always ask me hard questions, Bill. I remember when I was in Israel and I was with Rabbi Alon Goshen Gottstein. I always have to think about his name. He and I were touring parts of Jerusalem, and his version of Judaism was very different than Irv's. It wasn't so much about doing things and doing good. It was being Jewish that he just was. Kind of like when I'm Christian, I just am. So he brought that to me, but he also brought to me, probably because he's a rabbi, following many rules. There were many rules that he followed. And we talked about how the rules had originally come from Leviticus. So I learned a lot more from him. And then another woman, and even Alana Mueller, they present to me being very good to people, doing good to others. That seems to be across the board, actually, in all three specific Abrahamic faiths, and also from Hinduism and Buddhism, what I've learned from people that I've met in those two faiths. So I would say that if someone were to ask me now in a lay person's way, I would say that Judaism has many aspects that are similar to how Irv described it to me, that it's very intentional they are very intentional about remembering their history and remembering from where they came and how things were and how they should be. That's very exact. It's not like this year you can change it because you want to. It's just this is what Moses did, and this is what we do on this holiday, and this is what we do on that holiday. Whereas I feel like in my own family, we stretch a lot in the Christianity. So I'll leave that there for the Christian part. So in Judaism, it's more specific and always seems to be very specific and exact, more exact to me than Christianity. Now, in Christianity, my Aunt Dina is Greek Orthodox, and she is much more exact in her Christianity than I am. And I would say that my Christianity is a faith about humanity and a faith about God. Probably less so about Jesus himself and more about God. I focus much more on God and what he offers. And my faith is in believing that our loved ones are with us in some way. I have such a huge belief in that, and I don't know that comes from my Christianity, but that's a belief that I have in that space. And that comes from all the messages that I get. I get so many messages that are apparent, so blatantly apparent to me. So if I were to explain Christianity to like my niece or nephew right now, I would probably use many of the same phrases that are used in Judaism and Islam. Be good to others, do good unto others, believe that there's a higher spirit that is with us and loving us. And really, in the end, I would say God is love, and God is love in in all the faiths. God does not want hate, but God gave us the ability to have free will. And unfortunately, it's that free will that tends to create the chaos and the hate in our world.
Patrick, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Mindy, thank you. I appreciate your presence tonight. And by my question, it's not my intention to steer away the conversation that you're offering us, but I do think it is a question. If you would like to address this, it seems that there is a lot of importance today in the news with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I'm wondering if you could share with us, how do you see the difference between Judaism and Zionism? How do you reconcile that? I know that's a loaded question, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Wow, that is a loaded question, because I don't know that I'm very educated on Zionism. Tell me your definition of Zionism.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
And then that way I know I'm answering you correctly.
I love it. You're doing what your friend is. You're throwing the question back to me. So good, good play. Yeah, I think that from what I understand, and I'm a retired professor of theology and philosophy, and I'm currently doing a lot of research on Zionism that I will present to the Franciscan community in Cincinnati sometime in the fall. And my understanding is that the word Zion simply is a reference to Jerusalem. So Zion equals Jerusalem. Zionism, I believe, began with good intentions as a way to connect and bring together Jewish people all over the world because of the diaspora, and creating a sense of place. But a sense of place did not necessarily mean a physical geographical location. I think what has happened since before the turn of the century is that Zionism has become an extremely right-winged apartheid thinking that largely we associate with Israel. Now, that's just my opinion, and people can agree or disagree, but that's how I cash it out. I think it began with good intention, with the spirit of keeping Jewish people all over the world connected in a spiritual way, not necessarily saying, well, everyone needs to move to Israel. Some Jewish people want to and others do not. But I think it is very problematic when we see what is going on with the extreme right-wing government in Israel, and especially the abuse of human rights against the Palestinians. So I'll leave it at that.
So your question to me, then, I'm going to repeat it, but I want you to clarify, is how do I view Zionism now and Judaism?
How do you view, is there a difference in your opinion between Judaism and Zionism? And how do you reconcile what appears to be two very different conversations?
Well, my opinion as a Christian, I've been based on how you explained your understanding of Zionism and my understanding of Judaism and the Jews that I know. Okay, so I can speak to the Jewish people that I know. They aren't running to go live in Israel. Like and I think that the Jewish people that I know would say that all humans have a right to exist and all humans have a right to be somewhere and have a place to be. My own personal experience, I traveled to Israel, and my own personal experience, people asked, what did I do when I was in Israel? And I said, well, I went with the Christians. So we did what Jesus did. Like, that was what we did. We went, in and out of Israel and Palestine. And just so you know, if you've not been to Israel, we were on these tour buses, and the Israeli soldiers, who are 16 or so, 16, 17, 18 years old, right, would get on the buses with these huge guns, these huge, really scary guns, weapons, and they would get on at the front and they would walk through and then they would get off at the back. And I would say that's the most, my husband asked me if I was ever fearful. And I said I was most fearful when these young kids would get on the bus. And I was very concerned that something might upset them or make them nervous. And then they would, shoot us without really wanting to, or think they should, or whatever, because we weren't doing anything that should upset them, but I didn't want to make them trigger happy either. So we went in and out of Palestine and in and out of Israel, and we kept going into these checkpoints. And I'll tell you what it reminded me of, and this made me go down a completely different path. But I thought to myself, when we were all discussing how Israel had built this wall and was keeping the Palestinians behind this wall, and we went into Palestine and we saw these people and these families sitting in their towns with nothing to do. They were lined up in chairs. They couldn't work. They couldn't grow anything. They couldn't do anything. And it made me think about what we did as Americans to the indigenous people, because people on our bus were saying, can you believe this is happening? Can you believe this is happening? And I said, well, if history serves me correctly, like it's happened over and over and over. So it's not new. It doesn't make it right. So I don't know that there's any justification or how to clarify it. Geneva and I were talking about this ahead of time. It's a very obviously messy situation. Personally, I think that people have a right to exist, and they have to figure out where they can exist. And that's, but those are based on the Jewish people that I know and what I know about what you just explained, your definition of Zionism.
And thank you for sharing. What a wonderful experience you had to witness that, of what you did see in Palestine. And of course, there's more to the story, but thank you for sharing that. And I think Vern had his hand up.
Yeah.
Mindy, I thank you so much for this opportunity to visit with you and all of us. And I look forward to reading your book and to David Nelson's vital conversation, in which you will be able to shed even more light on your journey. Could you summarize how, I admire you so much for moving from the tragedy while cherishing those you lost, by trying to learn about other religions. How did that help you heal your soul? How did learning about religions that you were not very familiar with at all, and people whose faith you didn't really know, even though you knew some people, how did that help you heal your soul?
Thanks, Vern. So the shooter wanted to murder Jews, and I had known that to have happened. We all know that happened. Everyone on here, I'm sure, believes in the Holocaust, and we're not non-Holocaust believers. And so, and then I knew that hate crimes had happened. I knew that the Oklahoma City bombing had happened. I'm originally from Oklahoma. I mean, I had seen these things, but it hadn't happened to me. And so when it happened to me, I realized, why does someone right now, in 2014, being right now, still want to murder Jews? Like, what is it about Judaism? Is there some deep, dark secret that's going on that I don't know about? I thought that. I was seeking that. Is there something? So I had that in my mind. But on the other hand, at the exact same time, all these Jewish people were wrapping their arms around us. I mean, these Jewish people were bringing us food and caring for us and sending cards and letters and inviting us to things. And the Jewish Community Center has the event KC Superstar, and that's what Reet was trying out for when he got murdered. And so now every year a portion of KC Superstar proceeds goes into a fund, and then we co-sponsor things with the J. So there was just all this love and support from Jewish people, and I thought, well, why did the shooter think that there was something? I didn't want to just say to myself, he's just mentally ill, or he's just evil, or he's just that. I really wanted to look a little bit. So I started down the path of looking. So that's why I looked. And so your question was, how did it heal me? It healed me when I found out that we had so much in common. It healed me when I learned, when I started reading about Judaism and going to their high holidays and going onto their premise, their synagogues. I went to Beth Torah, I've been to B'nai Yehuda, and the peace that I felt when I was there was very healing. Just the piece of their history and the victimhood that they've had of being treated less than because of their faith. And my family died because of that. I mean, my life was shattered because of their faith. And I felt close to it. I felt like I should know more about it. And so knowing more about it healed me. There was one specific instance. There are a lot of specific instances, but I'm going to tell you one that is not written about in the book. Okay, so there's lots of stuff written in the book. I'm going to tell you something that's not written in the book, because there's only so much you can write in a book, and then there's only so much I could have written in the book that would have led people to think that I'm a nutcase. So, because I really went out on an edge and really talk about things that are strange and happened. But one thing that happened was, it would have been Yom Kippur. Okay, so it was 2014, and it was the first year of their murders, and I was invited to Yom Kippur. I'd never been before, so I go to Yom Kippur, and I was crying. I cried through everything, and I'm crying through it, and I'm standing in Yom Kippur, and everything's in Hebrew, so I'm really not understanding what they're saying, but somehow I'm understanding what they're saying by how I feel, and by the sound of the music, by the tone of the music, and I could feel the sorrow in Yom Kippur. And it started reminding me of Ash Wednesday. So I started thinking to myself, this seems very similar. This seems like Ash Wednesday to me. But while we're there, and all the past presidents, I'm not sure if that's what you call them, but I think so, the past people of the synagogue, they're all holding the Torahs. Like, they've got these Torahs in their hands, and they're all standing. There's like 5 of them, and they're all holding the Torahs, and the music is playing, and there's this crescendo, and everyone's singing. And I have a vision. And after their murders, I started getting these visions, and I had a vision, and all of a sudden I was back in the parking lot, and there were angels all around. And I could see my dad in front of me, deceased, and I could see Reed just, losing his life, and I was there, but I wasn't alone. So Vern, what Judaism did for me, what going to their places of worship did for me, is it brought me closer to my dad and Reed. It brought me closer to what I think heaven is. And I felt like at that moment, heaven is the same for me as it is for Jews. So that was crucial. And then the other faith, I circled around into December, and that's when I got invited to the vigil for Abd Samad Hussein, and that's how Islam was introduced to me. And that caused whole kinds of confusion, because I was just learning about Judaism, and then wham, I get invited to this mosque, and I'm like, well, oh my gosh. And I literally was asking in my journal, I'm like, God, why are you now introducing Islam to me? Like, isn't it a little new? I need to know more about Judaism. But I got introduced to Islam very quickly. So then with Islam, I went to prayers on Friday with my friend Bilal, and I went to prayers another time, and I had men and women come up to me and talk to me about their beliefs. I had a woman say to me her belief in Jesus, and that Jesus was a prophet, and that you can't be Muslim if you don't believe that Jesus was a prophet. That was totally new to me. It just drew me closer, and it helped me with confidence say to other Christians, we're more alike. We're more alike, and together we're a better people. We're better when we talk to one another and share with one another. That's how it healed me. I hope that made sense. I kind of went off on a tangent.
I'm very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions?
Becky has a question.
Becky, you're muted.
Okay. Mindy, I'm curious to know which denomination of Christians you belong to.
So today I belong to the Methodist denomination, but I was raised, most of my childhood, I was in Presbyterian.
Well, I'm like, you know, when you said that, I don't know if this is my interpretation of what you said, but you can tell me. I think you said that all that is necessary is faith, and your Jewish friend was saying there's action involved, like their faith is based on action. And I was surprised that you said it was just faith, because I think Christianity is more than just faith. It's faith is dead unless there's something coming from it, some action. So I just want you to respond to that. I don't know what you meant.
Yes, well, because at
Or
the
if that's
time,
all you meant.
well, at the time, I think that was kind of Bill's question too, was that's how I believed, that's what I thought at the time, even though Becky, I was doing good things as a Christian, and I was giving and I was being charitable as a Christian, I was raised to do those good things, but I was just raised that good people do those good things, but to be a Christian was faith. So to be a Christian was faith, even though other people did good things. So along the way, I met a friend who was atheist. When I was outside of college, I met an atheist, and he did all kinds of good things, but he was an atheist, you know? So to me, I'm like, well, if he's an atheist and he's not Christian, he doesn't believe. So wrapping the idea of good things and Christianity together were hard for me, because I felt like faith, I just had to believe. And I was raised in a church where it was all about believing. It was all about believing in the Trinity, you know, believing in the Virgin Mary. I mean, I just believe in the Virgin Mary, believe in this, believe in this, believe in that. And we did good things, but to me, what I heard was I had to believe. So, you know, I do good things, but I also see many people who say they're Christian, and they might do good things one day, but then they also might do things that I don't think are very Christian the next day. And so I tend to not link that together as much. And then Irv did say his vision of Judaism is leaving the world in a better place, specifically by doing good deeds. That's how he follows Judaism, is leaving. That was specific to what he said. So do I do good things because I'm Christian? I don't think I do good things because I'm Christian. I think I do good things because they make my heart feel good. I think if I were Muslim, I'd do good things. I think if I were Buddhist, I'd do good things. So I tend to link my faith to God and heaven and to a higher spirit. I tend to link that I have faith that there is a higher spirit, not that's guiding me every day, not that is my puppet, not that I'm a puppet or it's my puppet master, but that there are things out there in the world that I don't understand, but I know that that believing in love as the highest source is, to me, part of my Christianity.
And then, well, the challenge of the Our Father is thy kingdom come, thy will be done. So we have to do something about bringing the kingdom here. So I don't know, that's just how I see it.
Yeah. So how do you bring
faith-
bring the kingdom here, Becky? Give me an example so I can answer that too.
Well, maybe by writing to a senator or a congressman to um, uh, be better in on policies to feed people, to give medical care to people. I mean, that would be like one example.
Yeah. So like
Bringing about the
helping the
kingdom.
poor. So helping the poor in some way and helping the people that are marginalized in some way. Yes. So
Yeah.
I believe in that too, but I also know that to me, Jews and Muslims do that too. So to me, that's not just Christianity. I guess where I struggle is they blur one another so much that that it's all very similar. Like Sunaina Dumala, who's Hindu, you know, they want to help the poor too. And so it was to me like I was raised, I felt like because we didn't have other faiths in town, that's why all we had in town was Christians. That's why it's all I knew was Christianity. I thought everyone was a Christian because that's all I knew. And we did these acts, but it was separated by us believing in this one, this deity, believing in that, believing in the Trinity. Because all the faiths now that I see, all of them do good. Any religion, I think all of us would say any religion that says they're a religion, but they go with acts of hate or violence, that's not a religion. And I know you weren't going in that at all, but I like the idea of thy kingdom come, thy will be done, and to bring the kingdom here. And that's what Christians say. But doing good for others is also what Muslims and Jews do too. It's not solely Christian. Dorothy.
I'm wondering, Mindy, if you struggled with judgment.
Judging who in particular? Do you?
Well, the perpetrator of the crime.
Okay.
Just because I see judgment as intricately connected to hate, but can you avoid judging when you've suffered so greatly?
So, judgment. I'm trying to think of how to answer judgment. So I choose to not spend time thinking about him and not spend time hating. Did I judge him? I guess so. I guess I didn't. I clearly haven't struggled with it because I'm having trouble answering that. Early on, when people would come up to me and say, "Oh, how did you forgive him so quickly?" And I was really shocked by that. That was very upsetting to me that people would say, "I forgave him." And I looked up forgiveness and studied it a lot because I was just concerned that people would think that I didn't think that what he did was wrong. But I spent a lot of time removing the hate from my heart and not spending time thinking about him. We don't say his name. I didn't write his name in the book. But do I judge people? I do sometimes. Absolutely, I do. And I wish I didn't. But I do. You know, like I do try to say, how did he get the way he was? His dad raised him that way. He said that. I do try to look at people's backstories and think what experience got them where they were. That's why I explain so much about my history. I say I was raised in a white town with almost all white people, only around Christians. So I didn't even know Jews existed. I didn't know Muslims existed, really. You know, and I am vulnerable about that and tell people that because I want other people that are similar to me to feel comfortable still learning and educating themselves. But I know I judge people and then I feel badly about it. But to me, I think it's maybe more about forgiveness to the shooter. And my forgiveness is just not having anger and hate on my heart with him all the time.
And so what kind of people helped you the most? Can you think of somebody who was crucial to your coming to terms with this tragedy?
Oh gosh, well, God. I just have to say, Dorothy, I get so many messages that Reet and Dad are with me all the time. And so I would say God first. And Adam Hamilton told me very quickly to listen. He said, keep listening. And so I do, I listen to with my heart, and I try to listen through prayer. And then other people, I write about this. Cookie Harvey is someone that I call a healer. She did Lomi Lomi on me, and she helped me realize how shattered I was and that I needed to heal more than I realized. Then there were people who physically helped me get out and exercise and walk. And there were people who said, my husband said, we have a living child that needs to be parented. You know, I was parenting a deceased child. And my husband said, we have a living child that needs to be parented. And that was helpful. So there were some key things that helped me move forward after I'd sat in all that pain for so long.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, you have another question?
Mindy, I appreciate that you brought up forgiveness. I give workshops on forgiveness, and the workshop that I give is titled Forgiveness, the Healing of Memories. And it is based on a model that I learned in South Africa. You can Google the Institute for Healing of Memories in Cape Town, South Africa. And one of the core beliefs of that method is to acknowledge that forgiveness is not always possible for a number of reasons. Sometimes people just aren't ready to forgive, or they cannot forgive. And so you have to meet people where they are. However, while forgiveness may not be possible, what is always possible is the healing of memories. And the way that we do that is by story sharing, what you're doing tonight. Not storytelling, but story sharing. That what you're doing is healing, and you're sharing that. So forgiveness, you can kind of put that aside for a moment. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you're not. It seems to me what you have done, what you are continuing to do, is healing the memory of what happened. It's right here in your heart. You've healed it. You can take it out. You can look at it. You can share it with other people. You can talk about it. It's not going to devastate you. And then you put it back there. It's because you know exactly where it is. It's right there in your heart. That's the healing of memories.
Yeah, and so I want to say that I learned from Sonia Warshawski, who's a Holocaust survivor in Kansas City. She spoke, and I've heard her speak several times, and she said, who is she to forgive? She said, so people would ask her, have you forgiven? And she stood right up, all, 98 pounds of her, and said, who am I to forgive? I wasn't slaughtered. I wasn't murdered. I wasn't, that didn't happen to me. And then Jacqueline Mirakatete, I know her, she was a survivor of the Rwandan genocide at 9 years old. And I actually just did a podcast with her, and it comes out this coming Saturday. And we didn't specifically talk about forgiveness, but she said something that I say is, you know what, I have a reality. And my reality is that my dad and son were murdered. That's my reality. And so I can choose to live every day, or I can choose to not live every day. I can choose to be kind. I can choose to be mean. We all have that choice. I have the same choice everyone has, that each one of you have. I just happen to have had a horrible tragedy that now I have to live with. And it is helpful to me in my healing, in my healing, that to not hold the hate. And then I call that forgiveness. So that has been helpful to me to not hold on to the hate and to move forward. I'm getting a theology lesson here tonight. Thank you.
Lots of comments about yeah.
That's good.
I don't know if you want to comment further on any of that, or if anyone had any questions or comments. There's a lot going on in the chat.
I have not read all the chat because I was listening. So is there something here? Let's see. You know what I'm going to do, because it's 9 minutes till, I'm going to read this piece of the Muslim part. Let me do that. And then you're going to save the chat, right, Geneva?
Yes, I can save it.
Okay, then I can look at it later. Okay, so I had this amazing Judaism experience in summer and early fall of 2014, and it's continued, but I just had that amazing experience at the synagogue and with Rabbi Nimitov, which is in the chapter, and with Irv, and then with Yom Kippur. And for a period of a few months, really maybe longer than that, I thought maybe I should be Jewish. I thought, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be Christian. You know, I think God's telling me that I'm supposed to be Jewish. And right at the time I was considering that, unfortunately, Abdus Samad was murdered, and he was also 15, and he was murdered in Kansas City. And I had a piece I was going to read from. I'm trying to figure out where. Oh, I just moved it. Okay, so I said here. Okay, so they invite me. So Abdus Samad's siblings invite Mindy Corporon, invite Reet Underwood's mom, not me. They invite Reet Underwood, who's my son. They invite Reet Underwood's mom to the vigil. So I decide I'm going to the vigil, and I write in here, now that I'm on page 213. Now that I am planning to walk into a mosque for the first time in my life, the hairs on my neck prickle and my heart races. I wonder about the appropriate dress for a Muslim vigil. I'm not concerned about my appearance. I'm at a loss as to what their religious and cultural standards are for a vigil, for a woman at a vigil. So I do what anyone else would do. I Google what to wear to a mosque. Then I give Manaz, and Manaz is Manaz Shabir, who had invited me, who told me about this. So I give Manaz a quick call to confirm I can wear pants. This was a big deal to me at the time. Pretending to know more than I do, I let her know about my plan to wear a headscarf, and I ask for confirmation. Manaz concurs with the expectation of me and all women entering the mosque to have our heads covered. She explains that the Islamic faith instructs men and women to dress modestly, telling me that these scarves are called hijabs. She assures me it doesn't matter what kind of scarf I wear, but that my mother and I should cover our hair. With this small amount of confirmation regarding my apparel, I quickly become apprehensive about not understanding the difference between Muslim and Islam. These two words were used by Pastor Hamilton and now Manaz. Are they interchangeable? And so I go on to explain how I Googled Muslim and I Googled Islam, because in my life, raising two kids at the time, two white boys in a white area in Johnson County in their white school, not knowing any Muslims and not going to any mosques, you know, that just wasn't anything I felt like I needed to know about. And now I'm getting ready to walk into a mosque. And so I explain how I got there. And not only did they want me to be there, they wanted me to speak. And I was asked to speak at a mosque, and I was dumbfounded. And then after that, I write in my journal, you know, now what, why am I being introduced to Islam? And that really led me, you know, Vern and Bill know about this, and David Nelson know that in 2015, I had an interfaith gathering. And I didn't know how many faiths there were. There were like 23 faiths represented in Kansas City alone with the Kansas City Interfaith organization. I had no idea. And so I just look at myself as this, you know, white girl from Oklahoma who's still learning. And that's a lot about what I write about, so that other people who are like me will be willing to learn, and will be willing to listen, and not be so inside their box and afraid to go out and find understanding somewhere. Thank you all for being here. I know we have 5 minutes left, I think, so ask away, but your theology questions are huge. So maybe something simple.
Mindy, whatever did you say at the mosque?
I said, okay, so first I asked Manaz, this is where Becky, this is what I think about when I think about God. I asked Manaz, do Muslims believe in heaven? And she said, yes. I said, do you think Abdus-Samad is in heaven? And she said, yes. She said he would be in heaven. And I said, I can talk about heaven. And so it was when it was my turn to speak, I spoke from a mother's heart. And I said, I'm so sorry that this happened. And that I know that my dad and Reed are in heaven. And I know that they have welcomed Abdus-Samad to heaven. And that one day you will see him again in heaven. And so that's what I was able to talk about.
Wonderful.
Hey, Dorothy, go ahead.
I was intrigued with your saying that you struggled with the causality and that you did not want to get caught up with mental illness as a cause, which probably would be genetic. And you didn't want to get caught up with evil, which could be genetic or environmental. The one thing that you were affected by in causation might have been his upbringing, his father. And I'm wondering if you think that education might be the saving grace that we need. In addition to the story, which I love the storytelling and the memory, I love all that, but do you think in school we should be teaching and educating our students about how to handle what is happening?
Well, I think it has to be more than in school. I think it has to be in life. I think it has to be in every facet of life, in a synagogue, in a church, in a mosque, in corporations, in families, in schools. I wouldn't just put that onus or that bearing on schools. And let me be clear. So in the book, I do talk about him being evil. He is the most evil person I've ever known. He had no remorse. So I do talk about evil, and I do think that people can be evil. I don't know. Typically, many people say, and I say, we're born as a baby, we're not evil. But who am I to say? Maybe there's a baby that's born that's evil. I don't know. Hollywood would have us believe that there's, babies born that are evil all the time. So, but he was evil, but he was taught hate, and he talked about that. And so I don't know that the schools, not that they shouldn't talk about kindness. I think they should, but I wouldn't say that that's only where it should be. I think and that's what Faith Always Wins does. In 7 days, Make a Ripple, Change the World. We engage young people, we engage everyone, but we're really focusing on young people who are so impressionable and can turn to white supremacy. They're looking for a place to belong. Everyone wants to belong. Every one of us wants to belong. We all want someone to value who we are. And when you're a teenager, it's even harder. And so Faith Always Wins is focusing on, groups of teens every year and helping them feel like they have a place to belong in a kind and loving place, whether they get it at home or in school or not. We're trying to provide that. And I know many other organizations do that too. But if students are trying to belong somewhere and they're in their bedroom and they're playing, and this is just a one-sided mindset, playing video games, and the white supremacists or neo-Nazis log in and they're on chatting with them live, I know kids have been turned to evil because of that. I know a family who lost their son because of that. So I think it's all of our responsibility as humans to be aware of how to help the younger generation feel like they belong and that they can make a path with kindness and love.
That's beautiful.
Well, thank you, because I didn't feel very smart half the time.
Thank you so much, Mindy. We are at 8:00 now, so I don't know if you have any closing thoughts or comments.
What I will tell you is Geneva's going to give me the comments, the chat, and I'll look at those because I think those will be fascinating. I appreciate that. If any of you in the last couple minutes here, if you have a website, like Patrick, you mentioned some work that you do, and Vern, I know you do. If anyone else has something that they follow or that they want other people to know about, I would put it in there. I've been following Richard Rohr. I have really enjoyed just recently, Jean, you raised your hand. I've been following the whole thing he's doing on sexuality. The last several have been on sexuality, and that's just been fascinating to me. I even emailed Adam Hamilton. I said, have you heard of Richard Rohr? He's like, yeah. So, but I was making sure that he had. You know, what I would say is, of course, I want you to buy my book, but really, I want you to learn from each other. I mean, I learned so much. All I know is what I know, and I wrote about it, and I was very vulnerable in writing about it and saying that I didn't know very much, and I'm continuing to be schooled and learn. I learn every single day, and I appreciate all of you for allowing me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mindy. It's always great to see you, and really appreciate all of the work that you're doing. I've put in the chat links to how you can follow Mindy's work, both of her organizations, Faith Always Wins and Give 7 Days, as well as a link to purchase her book on Amazon. So I encourage you to do that and to share it with anyone you might think will be interested. And I will get this chat to you as well, and maybe you have some follow-up from that. But just thank you all so much for being here and for asking great questions, having great conversation, and to Mindy for your time. And is there anything else before we?
I want to make sure that everyone knows that Bill Timaeus just wrote a book, and it's got all kinds of things about evil in it, and the evils of people that have happened for years and years, and he left me with so many more things to read and so much more to understand. But Bill's nephew was killed in 9/11, and he just published a book called Love, Loss, and Endurance. And that's why Bill had to read my book, because I had to read his book, and so he had to read mine. And so, you know, his book is amazing, and about Islam, has a lot of information about Islam in it, and terrorism and the evils of that. And so that's a very good educational piece as well.
Thank
So
you.
actually-
I put a link to that book in the chat as well.
Good.
So thank you for that mention.
Good.
That was what I was going to say. And Bill actually did a talk for the Interfaith Center on his book, and Vern moderated that conversation. So I encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and check that out if you haven't watched it yet. And this video will also be available if you want to share it or watch it again. So so thank you so much again, everyone, for being here. Thanks to Mindy.
Thank you, Geneva. Thanks for hosting.
I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.